Chicago's gang wars have produced countless names, but few shocked the streets like Gakirah K.I. Barnes. Barely 5 feet 3, just a teenager, yet her reputation carried the weight of a seasoned killer. By 16, people were calling her the female King Von, a label born out of fear and respect. To some, she was a savage assassin, to others, a lost girl shaped by tragedy and survival. But who was she really? And how did a shy student become one of the most feared shooters in Chiraq? You see, long before Gakirah Barnes lost her life in a hail of bullets on Chicago's South Side, the whispers about her had already spread like wildfire. Her mother kept hearing things no parent ever wants to hear about their teenage daughter. Gakirah was just 17, barely 5 feet 3 and 128 pounds. In school, she once came off shy, but in the streets, the talk was different. She was said to be a rare figure in Chicago's gang world, a female hitter, not the type to just hold her boyfriend's gun or ride along as backup, but someone who was believed to actually pull the trigger. According to law enforcement, Gakirah was suspected in multiple shootings, 3 to 5 depending on who you asked, and at least one murder. She even kept newspaper clippings of her friends who'd been killed like trophies of a war she was living through. On the streets, her name carried weight. People feared her, people respected her, and in Chiraq, respect often meant survival, but she wasn't born into this life. Her story started in Woodlawn, a neighborhood that had been drowning in poverty and violence for decades. From the jump, tragedy marked her path. Her father was gunned down on Easter Sunday in 1997 before she even turned one. That loss cut deep. Never knowing him may have been what made her tough, but it also left her desperate to connect, to protect, to belong. With her father gone and her mother overwhelmed, Gakirah ended up with her grandmother on St. Lawrence Avenue. At first, she seemed like she might take a different road. She was sharp, especially in math, pulling straight A's. She dreamed of becoming a social worker. When she started at a Southside charter school in 2010, she stumbled early, catching a suspension for disrespect in her first month. But that was the extent of her trouble. Teachers said she wasn't the fighting type. If anything, she got frustrated at times, especially in math, and would storm out only to seek help. Her assistant principal, Tiffany Harston, remembered her as quiet, even timid. By the end of 8th grade, though, Gakirah was loosening up, making friends, smiling more. The staff believed in her, pushing her toward college and a brighter future. But when high school rolled around, the story started to change. Her attendance fell apart. She slipped into the juvenile justice system. Eventually, she dropped out altogether. And with friends around her getting shot, the lure of the streets became harder to resist. Journalist Frank Main later said it best. For Gakirah, gang life became the place where she could find respect, honor, and belonging. The same kind of belonging other kids find on the basketball court or in the chess club. She grew up right in the heart of Gangster Disciples territory, with the Black Disciples posted up just a few blocks over. It was like living in a battlefield, what some people even called an urban Vietnam. Kids like Gakirah Barnes were caught right in the middle of it. At first, she was just sliding through the parties, soaking up the atmosphere. But as the war between the GDs and BDs kept stacking bodies, the streets pulled her in deeper. What started as fun turned into survival, because the gang life offered her 2 things she craved most: protection and respect. By her teenage years, she locked in with the crew of young men from her block in Woodlawn on Chicago's South Side. They called themselves different names, the St. Lawrence Boys, the Flyboy Gang. But at the end of the day, they were still a GD faction holding down territory east of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive near 64th. The Gangster Disciples, or GDs, officially took shape back in 1969. That's when the heads of the Black Disciples and the High Supreme Gangsters came together to plan out their future. Leading the charge was Larry Hoover, a street veteran who was tired of watching his community fall apart from pointless violence. He pushed for unity, and that alliance birthed the Black Gangster Disciples Nation, setting the stage for a new era on the South Side. At first, the move looked solid. The GDs began building a presence beyond the streets, launching community programs and even opening legit businesses like restaurants and hangouts. But once the 1970s hit and drugs flooded Chicago, everything flipped. The same neighborhoods they promised to uplift became flooded with narcotics. The GDs jumped into the trade heavy, turning their own blocks into drug markets and recruiting grounds. With money came problems. Some members got rich off the game, while others ended up trapped by the very same drugs they were pushing. That chaos led to bloodshed, and a drug-related murder eventually put Hoover and Andrew Young behind bars. Prison didn't stop Hoover. In fact, it made him stronger. By 1978, he was the undisputed leader of the BGDN, running operations from behind bars. He built ties with other gangs, laid the foundation for the massive Folk Nation Alliance, and even oversaw the rise of Latino sets like the Spanish gangster Disciples. But big alliances come with big cracks, and by 1991, those cracks exploded into war between the GDs and the BDs, sparking years of deadly conflict. Even after the government went hard at gangs in the 1990s, Hoover's influence didn't fade. He was eventually sentenced to life, but the GD stayed one of the biggest and most feared forces in Chicago. Their reach stretched far beyond the city, too. In 2005, a GD named Rico Williams made headlines in Germany after murdering a fellow member during an initiation ritual near the Ramstein air base. He was hit with 22 years in prison. Zooming out, the GDs sit under the Folk Nation umbrella, which puts them at odds with major rivals like the Vice Lords. They also clash hard with the Black P. Stones, making the Chicago gang map a tangled mess of alliances and deadly rivalries. For Gakirah Barnes, none of that history was just background noise. It was the reality she stepped into. She wasn't just another recruit. Her fearlessness and willingness to handle jobs the guys didn't even want made her stand out quick. She built close ties with names like FBG Duck and earned mentorship from seasoned figures who saw in her the same fire that fueled the city's most notorious legends. In 2011, Barnes caught her first serious case. She was charged with firing a gun, though no weapon was ever recovered. Her mother, Chantel Brown, later explained that the judge assigned to her case didn't necessarily want to punish her, but rather protect her. He ordered her into an alternative school program inside Cook County's Juvenile Detention Center, hoping that keeping her there would keep her off the streets. In the end, the case didn't stick. Witnesses who had once identified her backed out, changing their stories, and Barnes was found not guilty. Even after that, she still attended classes from time to time at a different alternative school on the far south side, but her focus was shifting. School stopped holding her attention, and she began spending more of her time outside. Her mother always said she was a smart and articulate girl, but she just wasn't interested in books anymore. That's when she started answering more to her street name, K.I., short for Gakirah. At first, she was just a bystander, hanging around with guys already deep in the life. But everything changed in January 2011 when her close friend, 15-year-old Shondell Tuka Gregory, was gunned down while waiting for a bus. That moment marked a turning point. Tuka's murder wasn't just another killing, it became fuel for a vicious cycle. His killers mocked his death online, even going so far as to edit toilet paper into a photo of him lying in his casket. That digital disrespect, what became known as cyber banging, sent Gakirah over the edge. Her grief hardened into rage. The conflict that followed spread like wildfire. 8 months later, a Black disciple named O.D. Perry was shot and killed, and the streets lit up with rumors. People claimed K.I. had been the shooter, even though police never charged her. Tweets and whispers swirled, with one post mocking O.D.'s death by saying he was taken out by a girl. Prosecutors later suggested in court filings that Barnes's own brother had first-hand knowledge she pulled the trigger. On the street, the talk was that K.I. was only 14 when she caught her first body, allegedly alongside a top-ranking hitter from her circle. Some even said she grabbed OD's gun afterward and flaunted it online. That single incident catapulted her status. Journalist Ben Main described how a teenager who puts in work instantly becomes a legend, and that's what happened to KI. Her name rang out across Chiraq. She popped up in drill rap videos, her Twitter followers climbed by the thousands, and she built a reputation as a savage. Former gang member Angelia Bianca summed it up by saying she was a true gangster girl, living proof of what it meant to never back down. Her enemies had their own answer. The Black Disciples paid tribute to OD by renaming their block O Block, while the Gangster Disciples fired back, dubbing their territory Tukaville after Tuka. With those names, the battle lines were set. From then on, the war only escalated, and some of the biggest figures in the conflict started stepping into the spotlight. One of them was Chief Keef Kozart, a rising rapper tied to the Black Disciples. O.D. Perry, already killed earlier that year, could even be seen in one of Keef's old music videos. But Keef wasn't just repping his block, he was fanning the flames. His tracks openly mocked Tuka, leaving no doubt that the disrespect ran deep. Not long after, in November 2011, another life was taken. Carlton Tutu Archer, part of the Tuka gang, was shot and killed. Gakirah, who by this point was already deep into the streets, made her feelings public with a photo paying tribute to Tutu. She captioned it with R.I.P. Carlton, hands clasped in prayer. But anyone who knew her knew she wasn't just mourning. She had a sharp tongue online, and just like her homie FBG Duck, who was famous for being one of the boldest voices of disrespect, Gakirah quickly became notorious for mocking her ops on Twitter. She had no problem showing just how savage she could be, but the same rules she played by were about to cut back at her. The war had already taken OD and Tutu, and now it was about to come for someone close to her heart. The loss of her cousin, Tequan Tyler, would break her in a way no one expected. Tequan wasn't even from the city. He was only 13, just a kid visiting family in Chicago. One night, while leaving a party with a group of people, shots rang out. The gunmen weren't even aiming for him, but Taekwon was struck in the chest. Hours later, he passed away in a children's hospital. The tragedy was gut-wrenching. His mother, who was on her way to pick him up when the shooting happened, recalled holding her son on the sidewalk, talking to him as he struggled to breathe. She described him as her baby, a loving and respectful boy who didn't deserve the fate he got. For Gakirah, it was like losing her own little brother. Witnesses said they saw a side of her they had never seen before, tears pouring down her face. The hardened street soldier finally cracked open by grief. She couldn't let it go. On social media, her post revealed just how shattered she was. She poured her pain into her words, constantly writing about how much she missed Taekwon, how his death had left her without a heart. But grief wasn't the only thing she carried. There was rage too. Losing Taekwon didn't just hurt her, it hardened her. She transformed into something colder, something far more dangerous. That's when she adopted the Twitter handle Taekwon Assassin in his honor, a name that sent a crystal clear message. Revenge was her mission. From then on, her identity wasn't just KI, she was the assassin, a teenager walking a path soaked in vengeance. And it wasn't just the streets buzzing with her name. Online, she was gaining serious traction. Nearly 5,000 followers flocked to her Twitter page, no small feat back then, because she put it all out there. She bragged about being a shooter, sent direct threats to rivals, and showed the world she was really living that gangster life. She wasn't only tweeting either. She started popping up in drill rap videos, posing with guns and stacks of cash, showing off the same energy she carried outside. As the violence on the South Side kept spiraling, her reputation skyrocketed. On the block, people whispered that she was tied to at least 20 murders. To most, she was a nightmare in female form, cold, reckless, and deadly. Police saw the same thing but couldn't do much about it. A high-ranking officer later admitted She was suspected in 3 to 5 shootings, including at least one murder. The issue was simple. Everybody knew she fit the description, but nobody was willing to point her out in court. No witnesses, no physical evidence, no case. She carried herself with so much swagger and intimidation that people were straight up terrified of her. Some even mistook her for a boy, and that worked in her favor when it came to ducking police. Her Twitter became the place where her bravado really showed. She used it like a stage to clown her enemies, mock the dead, and throw out threats without hesitation. Even the cops weren't safe. When her close friend Lil B was gunned down by police, K.I. jumped online and let it be known she wanted revenge. That moment showed she didn't care about consequences or even her own life. She was the streets personified, living and dying by the code of her gang. All of this earned her nicknames, the most infamous being Lil Snoop, after the female assassin in The Wire. For a girl to gain that kind of status in a world dominated by men was almost unheard of. But K.I. wasn't just accepted, she was feared. She became a go-to hitter, the one crews could count on when they wanted somebody gone. Wherever the violence erupted, she was either in the mix or not far behind. That lifestyle put a massive target on her back, but her ops could never seem to catch her slipping. She moved smart, stayed calculated, and carried herself like a seasoned killer. To rivals, she became the boogeyman, a teenage girl dropping bodies and leaving trails of destruction. She was even tied to the killing of GBE affiliate and known hitter J Money. Reports say she and Lil B were there when he got set up by a female, then shot multiple times in the face. Afterward, K.I. didn't keep quiet. She let it be known J Money was one of her intended targets, turning her Twitter feed into something like a trophy case, bragging about kills as if they were badges of honor. But behind all that savagery was still a young girl. She wasn't even grown yet, but she had already witnessed the deaths of friends and people she loved over and over. The weight of all that bloodshed had to be crushing, but instead of breaking her down, it pushed her deeper into darkness. Her pain turned into fuel, and her rage became her identity. By then, K.I. wasn't just another name in the streets. She was a legend of Chiraq, feared by rivals, hunted by police, and haunted by everything she'd already lost. A teenager carrying the mindset of a monster, living reckless and proving with every move that she was truly cut from a different cloth. Meanwhile, the rap rivalry in Chicago was hitting a boiling point. Joseph Lil Jojo Coleman, a young affiliate of Tuka's crew, fired shots at Chief Keef and the Black Disciples, not with a gun, but with music. He dropped a song and video where the message was crystal clear: "We BDK." The K stood for killers, and everybody knew what that meant. But things turned deadly fast. In September 2012, Jojo was gunned down while riding on the back of a friend's bike, not long after tweeting his location. Just a few months later, on Christmas Day, 18-year-old Joshua J. Loud Davis was murdered, allegedly just for wearing a hoodie that repped JoJo. His brother Ricky later told reporters that J. Loud only wanted to rap and give his mom, who was raising 5 kids alone, a better life. Ricky put the blame on the music, saying none of this would have happened if it weren't for Chicago's rap scene fueling the fire. By July 2013, Flyboy Gang dropped a video called Murder. Young ex-Dutchie led with a chilling line about his crew being ready to kill, followed by a shout out to K.I. as his young killer. Gakirah Barnes appeared throughout the video, small, young, but fearless, standing next to men twice her size. At one point, she even popped up with an automatic pistol and a bandana covering her face. The video included a skit where outsiders tried to rob the gang but quickly learned they were way out of their depth. The message was clear: crossing FBG wasn't just risky, it was a death wish. Without the real-life bloodshed behind it, the video might have looked like just another over-the-top performance, the same fake gangster routine rappers in other cities used to sell records. But this was different. Drill music was raw, violent, and real. In Chicago, to drill meant to shoot, and the industry saw something it hadn't before: Meanwhile, Chief Keef had left the city behind, moving into a mansion in the suburbs after signing with Interscope. But he wasn't exactly laying low. On Instagram, he posted photos of himself posing with guns in a marble bathroom. His debut album, Finally Rich, stirred even more controversy with lyrics that disrespected Tuka's memory. In September 2013, Leonard La Capone Anderson, one of Keef's close associates, was shot leaving a studio. He had barely survived an earlier attempt on his life, but this time, at just 17, he didn't make it. Back at his home, a birthday cake his mother baked still sat untouched on the counter. She could only say she didn't know what to do without her son. Keef kept fueling the fire. In November, he tweeted what looked like future lyrics. "Bitch, I'm coolin' with my youngins, smoking tutu with my youngins." That was a direct hit aimed at one of Barnes's close friends. By 2014, Barnes had built a deadly reputation, but the final straw came with the killing of Chief Keef's cousin, Mario Blood Money Hess, who had just secured a $50,000 advance on a record deal. When Hess was gunned down in April, street rumors immediately pointed to Gakirah as the shooter. Police never confirmed her as a suspect, but the streets didn't need official word. The day after, she tweeted a line from a Biggie song, "A nobody until somebody kill you, that's just real shit." Whether it was a confession or a reflection of her own grief was unclear. Just days earlier, her friend Rossin Lil B. Shaw had been killed by police in the same area where FBG filmed the murder video. In tribute, Barnes renamed her Twitter page No Surrender Lil B. Still, the whispers about blood money were enough to mark her for death. Her own ally, Lil J, made things worse by posting a video drinking red liquid with the caption, "Sippin' on blood money." That taunt sealed her fate. On April 10th, 2014, Gakirah posted a chilling message. "I done seen too many of my people in a casket. In the end, we died." That very same day, police officials tried one last time to intervene. District Commander Glenn Evans and Chris Millett, the city's director of community safety initiatives, were out delivering what they called custom notifications, basically warnings that gave gang members a choice, prison or a way out. They spotted Gakirah in an alley off 63rd near King Drive, deep inside rival BD territory. Millett even approached her directly, offering a lifeline and a chance to walk away from the cycle. But Gakirah, respectful yet unmoved, turned it down and kept walking, straight back into danger. Less than 24 hours later, on April 11th, 2014, everything caught up to her. Earlier that day, she tweeted out a picture of herself and her crew chilling on the porch in Woodlawn. But then she slipped up. She dropped her exact location online. In the streets, that was a deadly mistake. The gathering wasn't supposed to end in bloodshed. They were out there honoring Boss Trail, who would have turned 18 that day. But instead of a celebration, it became a setup. Later that afternoon, a car pulled up close by. Out stepped a figure in a gray hoodie, moving with purpose straight toward Barnes on Eberhard Street, just a couple blocks from where Odie Perry had been killed 3 years earlier. Around 3:30 p.m., gunfire erupted. Barnes was hit repeatedly. Reports say as many as 9 shots tore into her chest, neck, and jaw. She collapsed at the bottom of some wooden porch steps, fighting for her life. Because she was 17, she couldn't be treated at the University of Chicago's Children's Trauma Center just down the street. That hospital only takes patients under 15. Instead, she had to be transported 13 miles away to Northwestern Memorial. By the time she got there, it was too late. She was pronounced dead at 5:43 p.m. News spread instantly. A Flyboy gang member tweeted in grief, while others online, especially rivals, mocked her death before the body was even cold. In the neighborhood, witnesses said Barnes and a friend had been walking when the shooter opened fire. The bullets hit so hard they knocked her onto the steps of a nearby house. One neighbor ran for a towel, desperately trying to stop the bleeding, but it poured from her chest too fast to control. Community activist Andrew Holmes, who had long been warning about street violence, wasn't surprised. He admitted he'd heard Barnes's name for years. Families of victims often told him they believed she was tied to their loved ones' deaths, sometimes as the shooter, sometimes as the getaway driver. Holmes even recalled seeing her wear a shirt with the letters CPK, short for Chicago Police Killer. To him, she was living the role she called herself, a hitter. His message afterward was blunt. Parents needed to drag their kids in from the streets before they ended up like her. Her mother, Chantel Brown, saw things differently. She insisted that inside her home, she had control of her daughter. But once Gakirah hit the streets, she became someone else entirely. Barnes believed she couldn't survive as the good girl her mom wanted her to be. Out there, she thought she had to wear the mask of a badass just to make it through another day. Now, right after Gakirah's death, her presence didn't just fade away. Friends flooded social media with pictures of her holding guns, reminding everyone of the fearless persona she carried in the streets. But then things got eerie. It was like she never left. Someone started tweeting from her account, dropping messages that sounded like a ghost reaching back into the living world. The tweets were wild, talking about teaching young ones how to shoot, promising to still turn up, and warning that her enemies would be haunted with nightmares. The legend of Boss Kira was growing even stronger even though she was gone, and the internet made the war even messier. Retaliation threats started flying. One of her followers even tweeted directly at a Black Disciple affiliate saying they were going to kill him, tagging him by name and throwing up the hashtag BDK Black Disciple Killer. It showed how fast the line between online beef and real-life violence blurred in Chicago. Her family, though, painted a totally different picture. To them, Gakirah was just a teenager who loved basketball, music, video games, and being with her little sister. Her mother remembered sitting with her, both of them playing songs on their iPhones, laughing and cracking jokes. She was deeply loved at home, no matter what the streets said. The neighborhood was tired. Another resident spoke out, saying they had already lost 2 of their own children to gun violence and couldn't understand what anyone was even killing for. Nobody owned the blocks, yet bodies kept dropping as if turf was worth more than life itself. Her mother wasn't about to stay silent. She pulled together a $10,000 reward for information about her daughter's killer and went on TV holding up Gakirah's graduation photo. She wanted people to see the real girl, not the social media persona. She explained how kids tried to outdo each other online, talking like outlaws and making themselves look bigger than life, even when the truth was much smaller. To her, the internet hype was just noise, but the bullets were real. She made it clear that the rappers stirring things up weren't the ones dodging death walking home from school every day. They weren't the ones burying friend after friend. Her daughter had collected obituaries of her fallen peers, stacking them like pages in a war diary. And now her own obituary was added to the pile. She admitted through tears that Gakirah was a protector at heart, which made her death even harder to accept. She couldn't protect her own child. That's why she spoke of organizing a Million Mom March, bringing together mothers who had lost kids, no matter the circumstances, to stand against the endless bloodshed. Meanwhile, the rumor mill exploded. Whispers spread about who pulled the trigger. Names like Big A, King Von, and others from O Block circled the streets. At first, Von's name sounded far-fetched. He and K.I. had a twisted bond, sometimes beefing, sometimes vibing, a strange love-hate connection. But years later, in 2021, police documents surfaced that seemed to back the rumors. Those files revealed that witnesses had identified King Von as the shooter. The official description said a man in a gray hoodie and blue jeans opened fire, hitting 3 people, then jumped into a car and fled. Investigators concluded it was Davon Bennett, King Von, but the evidence wasn't strong enough to lock him up. Charges were never filed. Ironically, Von's own story ended the same way he allegedly ended hers, gunfire. In November 2020, he was killed outside a hookah lounge after a fight with rapper Quando Rondo's crew. Things spiraled quick. Fists turned into gunshots, and 6 men were hit. Vaughn didn't survive. Days later, Chicago buried him, another young life lost to the streets. Gakirah Barnes was just 17 when her chapter closed, but in the world of drill and the blocks of Chiraq, her name turned immortal. She carried herself like a soldier, rode for STL, EBT, FBG, and 63rd with no hesitation and never backed down. It's heartbreaking that the girl who once dreamed of being a social worker ended up branded as a legend for her body count. She lived and died by the code of her set, proving herself time and time again. In the end, she went down as one of the deadliest names to ever come out of STL/EBT, and her story still echoes through Chicago's streets.